Welcome to the podcast Unimagined, where current and former students share how they imagine education and schools could be regarding student leadership. We ask them to share their experiences and offer advice on how we can do better for all. In this episode, we spoke to Evan Dow, a student at Bishop Brady High School. Evan loves to play lacrosse, ski, and bike. His goal in life is to help others as he aspires to be a neurologist. In his free time, Evan likes to play video games and learn historical facts, and he's also been involved with Best Buddies in his school and spends time volunteering in the special education department at Bow High School.
When we clear the floor of the obstacles, imagine what they will do. I know you can imagine too.
Evan, can you talk to us a little bit about the ways you saw leadership being developed within the school environment?
Lacrosse camps for New Hampshire Tomahawks. It was really fun to be one of the captains, and through Best Buddies, that was a really great experience to work with that.
You've stepped into these leadership roles in the past couple of years. What have you gotten, and what has come out of these roles that you've had?
Honestly, I think just a lot of confidence, able to try different things. This year, I'm trying out for the football team. I've never played football before ever, so do new things.
Can you talk a little bit about Best Buddies? Explain to the listeners what Best Buddies is.
Best Buddies is a program where you go and work with special needs kids in your school. You go on field trips, make food, tutoring, and it was a really awesome time.
What inspired you to get involved with Best Buddies?
I think most of it had to do with my mom working in the department, and I just loved hanging out with the people there and decided to do Best Buddies and keep building on relationships in environment. And
Have you always seen yourself as a leader in school or in these clubs, or did you kind of find that you had to work at obtaining and maintaining these roles?
I think other people saw me as a leader, and I didn't really see it in myself. I was always the ringleader of some sort.
What were some defining moments in your high school career so far that have made you realize that you are a leader?
It was Best Buddies. I was coming in a lot more and doing a lot of volunteer work there. That's really what made me want to do more things and help more people and just try and be the best person I can be.
Evan, how can we get more students to see Best Buddies as an opportunity to develop leadership skills, ways to engage with each other to build unity?
I feel like the kids in that part of the school are kind of hidden away, and just go down there and say you want to help out. Just do little jobs around there. I think if you just go down there and ask, it'll be really easy because not a lot of people do that.
So when I was in high school, I was actually in Best Buddies as well, and I really enjoyed it. But I also noticed that there can be two kinds of members involved in Best Buddies. There are the people that are really motivated to take those leadership roles and to be involved, and then there are people in it who may not be in it for the best intentions. How do you feel? How did you notice that you were in that leadership role rather than?
I saw a lot of people that just showed up and didn't really engage that much, but I was coming in on Wednesdays when we had days off, and I was playing every unified sports team. There were a lot of people that were there just to be in the background and just have their name on the list.
Do you think students feel intimidated to get involved with the students in that program?
Yeah, totally. Because I was last year, middle school. It took me a while, and I ended up volunteering for a couple of speech groups. And honestly, I was really scared because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to expect. I just got a couple of friends, and we all went down there and helped out, and it ended up being a lot easier and less scary than I made it to be in my mind.
Did you find that moving schools pushed you ahead in a leadership way and gave you that leg up? You're now accustomed to changes, or do you think it was a struggle or a setback?
Academically, I think it was a push forward. I'm doing a lot better in school there. As a leadership role, I think it was a kind of a step back because they don't have a Best Buddies program there. There's not very many sports teams. I'm still going to be doing out of school volunteer work.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the unified team that you were on, what your role was, and how it felt to be part of that type of team?
I played on the unified basketball team, and I played on the unified soccer team. It was COVID when we played, so we didn't get to play with other schools, but normally you would get to do games against other schools, and you would just be a helper. You wouldn't score or anything, but either dribble the ball or bring stuff down and just help assist people. It was honestly a really good time. It was just like any other sports teams. It was still conditioning, there was still training, there was still practice. We had one big game at the end of the year against staff. That was pretty fun.
When I think of athletic teams, especially varsity high school teams, there's an incredible hierarchy. Can you compare teams which have not been unified versus the team where there is that sort of environment of people helping each other? Elaborate on the feeling of team and community between the two types of teams.
It's a lot more competitive. There's a lot more people competing to try and be the best person there and try and get their name out and just be the one everyone talks about and be the best player. On Unified, it's just everyone having fun. It's not about being the best. It's just about seeing everyone progress at the same rate, being left behind or excelling way ahead of everyone. It's just about being one team and just having a good time.
A lot of what we talk about on this podcast is how can students get more leadership opportunities that aren't the traditional leadership opportunities, such as captains, school president, or something like that. What advice do you have to help give students these leadership opportunities?
Encourage making and encourage people to join unified teams. It was really hard to actually sign up for the unified team. It wasn't out there, here's a flyer, take this, sign up. Just make it more accessible to everyone. I think it should be a lot easier than it is.
Any advice to coaches about the win? Is that what our focus should be for athletics? And why do you think that that's the predominant focus?
The whole winning thing, I think it is important. The win is more like the goal of your team, like to make them train harder and try and make them a better athlete, because their reward is saying that you won that game or that main incentive to be playing. I think it should still be there. I think it should be less glorified than what it is. It should be more about the actual sport itself, about being a better player, being a better team.
What would you say the top 3 leadership qualities or strengths?
I feel like in any environment, a lot of people either listen and take into consideration what I say.
You seem very well spoken for a young student.
Thank you.
Evan, what about video games? Do you think there's leadership potential in playing video games, and especially maybe the cooperative video games?
Kind of like a sports team, you're not exactly named out. It's just all of you as one. Not really as a leader or as someone that's just a sheep or a listener. It doesn't matter really who you are, what you look like, what your abilities are. You're just a part of the team.
Have you experienced any situation in gameplay where they take on more of an aggressive leadership role?
Yeah, there is a lot of people that are very angry people on video games.
What advice would you give to parents?
Honestly, I would have never played lacrosse if my parents never made me. Now it's one of the main things in my life and I love it a lot, and I just didn't want to play. Super focused on soccer. It was off season. I just went for it. It ended up being one of the best things to ever happen to me. Do stuff that makes you uncomfortable. If you don't want to join this team, just do it. If you don't want to be like a part of this club, if you're scared to, just sign up, just do it. Maybe you'll really love it. Maybe the people there are super awesome. You'll never know. Maybe you'll be really good at it. Never find out if you don't try.
That almost feels like advice for themselves. Don't be afraid to try something, even if it doesn't seem like the cool thing to do or the in thing to do. Finding something that makes you happy. You mentioned your interest in historical facts about World War II. Is that all you're interested in terms of history, or what other historical information sort of draws you in?
Every aspect of history is my favorite subject. Mostly World War II because of my grandmother. She was an extreme World War II history buff. I'd always visit her in the summers and we'd go to different museums and we'd read a bunch of books all about World War II history, stuff that happened.
Do you see yourself leading, especially in classes that you're very passionate about?
Just classes I'm passionate about. Pretty good at history and literature, and those are the 2 things that I really excel at in school.
Do you have any opinions on leaders of today that have taken on leadership roles in a public sense, in terms of knowing where we are right now and knowing that history is very repetitive? Can you make any correlations to leadership that we're seeing right now?
I can say a little bit with just stuff that's been happening around the world, riots and all of the pandemic, but you would see people hoarding food and locking themselves in their house happened, and everyone just shut down everything. Pretty historical things have happened from 2020 to 2021, and it seems like all of these things can be traced back to something that has happened in the past.
Do you see a potential for a leader
I do see a lot of people that probably could come out of this better than they went into it. I think there's so many opportunities to make a name for yourself nowadays.
Evan, do you have any questions for our audience?
One question for the audience. Do you think you are doing everything you could be doing right now? Do you think there's something in your life that you were putting off or that you haven't tried, that you wanted to, that you haven't yet? Just do it.
That's awesome. Thank you for listening to another episode of Unimagined. What I really liked about this episode was Evan challenged my view of video games, and he also provided some ideas on how more students can get involved with all different abled students. What was something this interview brought up for you? Share this podcast, comment on issues you think we should ask students, or help us to connect with a student.